Hello everyone, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on today's Learning Lab. So today we're going to be taking you through, today's Learning Lab is going to be taking you through Sage Intacct Planning. But just before we get started, I'm just going to do a little bit of introductions and housekeeping. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Fiona. I work in the customer success team, and taking you through today's session is going to be Andy, and he's head of Sage Intacct. Housekeeping before we get started is microphones throughout today's session will be muted. However, you have the go-to webinar panel down the right-hand side of your screen. There is a question box in that panel. Please do, as we go through the session, pop in any questions you have in there, and at the end of the session I will read out any questions that have been raised in the question box, or there will be the opportunity to take yourself off mute and you can ask a question instead. Also, today's session is being recorded, so if you aren't able to join for the full session, or you have colleagues who weren't able to join today, you will receive a copy of this recording after the session, and please feel free to share that with any colleagues. Okay, I think that's all from me, so I'm going to hand you over to Andy.
Thank you, Fiona. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for coming along today. Quick agenda, nice, short and sweet. I'll just do a quick introduction to what is Sage Intacct Planning and who it can benefit, and the businesses that it could benefit, and then we'll get straight in and we'll look at the product. Couple of things that I will just say in advance. Apologies if my audio sounds a little bit weird. I had a problem with my headset 2 minutes before, so I'm not using it. And if anyone here's a shrieking sound in about 10 minutes time, that is my 3-year-old getting back from nursery, so I apologize if you hear any of that, but I am 2 floors up, so you shouldn't get any of that. What is Sage Intacct Planning? Short, you know, the acronym that we use internally for this is SIP. This is a tool that sits alongside Sage Intacct, with an integration between itself and Sage, which allows businesses to have greater control over their budgeting and forecasting operations, including how you create them, how you maintain them, how you modify them, and we'll look at how you can do some of that throughout. So its main kind of benefit is to all of you that use the budgeting within standard Intacct. Within there, it's kind of flat. And what I mean by that is you have a number that you associate to a GL account and then tag dimensions to that, usually done monthly. It doesn't have to be, but it's usually done monthly. And what that doesn't really give you is the ability to understand how that number was derived. What were the calculations and assumptions and other things that went on during the budgeting process that you undertake within your businesses to arrive at a certain number. And this is one of the things amongst many that give SIP or Sage Intacct Planning a reasonable fit for businesses. Who would it benefit? Anyone that is doing their budgeting in Excel. Anyone that's doing modeling within Excel, which lots of businesses do, they have the same kind of challenges. They struggle with version control, they struggle with sensitive information and things like that. And this module allows for you to be able to have some form of control over that. So without further ado then, let's just go and have a look at this. So what I've got open is a copy of Sage Intacct. So this is just one that I've got linked up to my copy of planning. And I have planning open here, which we'll get into in a few moments. So without going through loads of Intacct stuff, this is just a dashboard, which may or may not be familiar to you, but it's one that I've got set up for the purposes of presenting this today. We have some KPIs across the top. We have a report here. But really, in this fictitious world of specialty products, what I want to do is just talk you through a little bit of how this then integrates and syncs with Intacct. So if we take this example here, we're looking at data based on the end of Q1, and everything looks okay. We're ahead of budget in terms of sales and everything else, and everything's looking pretty rosy within this business. If I fast forward to the end of Q2 and just set these parameters up here to the end of June, things within this particular business look very different. Sales are down. And it might be at this point that we go, actually, we're halfway into the year, we need to be able to reforecast. And we need to be able to reforecast based on the trends that have happened in in the previous quarter. For you to be able to do that quickly and efficiently in Intacct using the standard budgeting tools that are available, again, it doesn't really have any correlation back to how you arrived at the figures in the first place. It's just a number of figures. And this whole process might take days, weeks, even months to run through the entire modeling, to get right, to have all of the input from different people. And this is where planning comes in. So in terms of the integration itself, like in any other report, I can click into here in Intacct and I can start to drill through. And when I click and drill through, it takes me to the planning module within here. Now, I'm already logged into this, so I'm not going to go into it through that option. But what it actually does is it takes us to that specific line. So just to hop back to there, I was looking at my standard products and then looking at these values here. When I go into my planning module, what I've got here is my budget lines down the side, my standard product there, and if we just scroll across to June, there is that 151k that we were looking at. This view here is actually just a replication of the budget that's in Intacct, but if we wanted to start to understand what these numbers were and how we impacted them, if I click into my model here, what this does is it has a series of different things within here. I have my fixed assumptions. So within our standard products here, I have two different products. Appreciate that this might not be for everyone, but just to give you an idea of how it works. And what we're saying here is, well, my fixed assumptions for my standard products are that we sell this one at this value and that one at that value. And then I have a model line that I apply to that as well. And in this instance, I'm looking at number of units. So against each of my individual products, I'm saying, well, we'll do 100 units this month and this many and this many and this many, you get the idea. And then it arrives at the total sales value. So 100 units times 615 comes out at this value there. It does the same with the second product and so on and so forth until it gives us a total number of units, again, in this example, and the number. And again, if I just scroll across here to June, there's the 151k that we were reporting within Intacct there, okay? Now, there are obviously different ways that people and businesses model. I'm looking at revenue by product, which again might not be for everyone, but if I wanted to start to just show you something very quickly, a little bit different, if I wanted to start doing some modeling based on costs, here's an example I've got set up here, which is travel expenses in the sales team. So our fixed assumptions there are completely different, but they are flight costs, hotel costs, meals, number of trips, and our model line is based on how many sales trips that we think we're going to do per month, and then it will allocate those assumptions to the relevant part of the general ledger within our budget. Okay, so two very different examples, but to give you an idea of some of the modeling capabilities that you've got within the system, just to show you that there. Okay, so that's all well and good in terms of how that works. But if we take our fictitious example that I was looking at before, what we've got in the planning module is the ability to create different scenarios. So within here, I've got a worst case scenario. So having had a really bad second quarter in my example, the management team in my fictitious world have decided that we're going to create a worst case scenario, and for the next quarter we're going to project that sales are 85% down. Now, if I wanted to then start doing more what if analysis within this platform, I can do that pretty simply. I can come into here, I can, just for the purpose of this, just duplicate my worst case scenario, and then I'm just going to rename it, and we'll call it best case. So if I wanted to then create a different scenario within here, I could do so. And the way that I could do that is I could come into here and I could then say, well, actually, I want to create a different set of rules within this. So in my best case scenario, let's say that sales are only going to be down 40%. And I could go into here and I could change these. Oh, that's the wrong number. Excuse me. I could go into here and change these numbers, these percentages. When I come out and I save this, this is then going to remodel what was on my numbers here. And the easiest way for me to kind of show you this, so we're still in the world here of creating different types of scenarios, but if I wanted to go and have a comparison before I've done anything and committed any reforecast or budget or anything back up to the finance system, I have this concept in the planning module of sheets. And sheets allow us to start to view our data. So if I come into here, I might just say, well, show me my working budget. And if I wanted to then start to roll this up and change the filters on here, I could start to view this quarterly if I wanted to. If I have ginormous numbers in these budgets, I can change the numbers, and any dimensions that I've not really talked about but should be familiar with you in the world of Intacct that I've chosen to include in this will appear here, and we can start to look at that by dimensions. So just show me this department, this location, that kind of thing going on as well. The other thing we can do within here is start to look at comparisons. So if I click on my scenarios option here and say, well, show me what my worst case is versus my working budget, you start to see what that looks like. And if I just scroll across here, and if I just do this quarterly, it's a little bit easier to view, you can see in Q3, which we've been impacting here, based on our scenario versus our working budget, we have a huge hole. If we then say, well, actually, what does it look like based on the best case scenario, which we set up a second ago, or partially set up a second ago, you can see there's a dramatic impact on what our budgeting and forecasting numbers look like. We'll talk about in a few moments how you get your information from planning or to and from planning, from Intacct initially, what that might look like, how you then make changes in here, which is what we're talking about now really, versus then uploading them back into the system. But for the people that might not want to consume their data like this, we do have dashboards within here. These are effectively a series of widgets that you just add on to here. Again, I have my slices across the top where I can do comparisons, working budget versus actual. So this is showing me a graph of my cash balance. There's some different things in here, budget highlights versus operating expenses. And the one that I particularly like is when do we run out of cash? So they're just a few different examples of ways that you can report within here. But if we think about how we then get data back up to Intacct, so it's pretty straightforward. I can just simply click on this option here, and what this does, you'll just have to bear with me whilst I put in some criteria into here. It allows me to connect to Intacct. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm putting in the data or the company ID, which should be familiar to you based on your own. And I'm going to put in some user credentials like this. And when I connect into here, it asks me what I want to do. So there's a few different things. Do I want to import actuals from Intacct? So we'll talk about that in a second. But actually what I want to do here is export my budget back up into Intacct. Do I want to create a new one? Do I want to add it to an existing one? For the purpose of this, I'll create a new one. We'll call this SEPS 24 reforecast. And give that the same description. Where do we want to do it? Do we want to set this as our default budget, which has an impact on reporting in Intacct, which I won't get too much into today. But what this is doing now is it just walks me through the wizard. Which financial reports do I want to update, export dimensions, and I can do this. And this is now loading a brand new reforecasted budget back up into Sage Intacct, which we'll look at in a second. It's just going to take a second to run. But as that is doing that, it's not going to take long. I don't have tons and tons of data. There you go. So if I wanted to, I could hyperlink into Intacct. I have it open here already. But if I just come into here and come into the budget area of my system, what you'll see is a list of the budgets that I already had set up. And here we have our September 24 reforecast, which I could then start to use on my financial reports within the product itself. A couple of other things that I just want to go through within here though. are how this would benefit a business over using Excel or however else you tend to model, which is not systemized. Again, I mentioned this at the top. One of the things that we see a lot, and we were like this until we started using the tool, this tool, is that the creation of the budget is a long drawn out process, and version control is a huge issue. So within this platform, you have the ability to have this history option here. And what this allows you to do is start to create snapshots, and it auto saves as you change things, and it gives different comments and things. So you have a full visibility of what happened on when and by whom effectively. And you can see who's made these updates to this. So if you ever need to go back to a particular version, you could do so by simply loading this up within here. The other thing and problem that people have is, how do you restrict sensitive information to people that need to collaborate on the budget without splitting the whole thing apart in Excel and then putting it all back together? This is also covered off within the platform. So if you just look at this budget down the side here, here's my total budget, here's sales for a location, here's sales, and these are the individual products. I could choose to give or deny access to people either at the top, this top whole budget, within just a section, and then down to the individual lines that make up that. And I simply come into here, and then I have the share option. I tell it who I want to share it with, what they can do. Can they just view it? Can they modify it? And then if I click down into the advanced option here, I can choose to share or hide specific information within here. So do I want to hide the head count, these different sheets that I briefly showed you, and a load of other things within there as well. And that's how we share or hide information from individuals within the business. In terms of how you can start with this product, if you've got your budgets already in Intacct and you wanted to start using planning, you can start from that position that you're currently in within Intacct. So if I come into here and create a new budget, I've got some various different options here, but I could start with using Sage Intacct data. Again, I could come into here, put in my Intacct credentials there, and then we can start to, no, that's because it doesn't like my password. Apologies about that. 1 second. Try again. There you go. So what, again, this is doing is connecting to Intacct. I can choose to walk through this wizard, and I can choose various things within here. But if I come into here, I give it a budget name. I tell it the date range, which can span from usually it will default to a financial year, but you can have multiple if you wanted to. If I keep clicking through this, which dimensions do I want to be included in this? So I could do things like this, for example. Do I want to import employee records? Not in this instance for the purpose of today. And then we have our accounts. What this allows you to do is merge accounts together. So instead of having individual budget lines for things for each GL account, what it effectively allows you to do is say, well, actually, all these things relate to the same thing. I just can't be bothered to budget at that particular level. Create a budget line which is just salaries within there, rather than the individual accounts themselves. And this is where we can choose how we structure our budget. And I never talked about this before, so apologies. But what this effectively allows you to do is start to use dimensions to give depth to this, and have different areas of your budget working in a different manner. And what I mean by that is I could take locations or entities and say, well, actually, the top level is that I want to split by entity. I want to, and the example that I used, is split my revenue by products, and then I want to do my operating expenses by department. And this would then give you a bit of depth when you're looking at the sheets and other things, and show you how you are typically splitting costs, overall costs that are GL or GL group level, across different dimensions within here. And we just click through. We simply keep clicking through, and then what will happen at the end of this is that we will end up in a situation where this budget appears within planning. And I'm not going to do the whole thing here, just because the data that I'm using, it's nowhere near 2024. but effectively what that looks like is this, and you would end up with another version of this within here, where you could start to see the information that you've brought back in from Intacct, again allowing you to be able to utilize different scenarios, take your current month actuals and make them the new budget, for example, and start to then use different functionalities within here to remodel, to create different scenarios and other things. Short but sweet in terms of what I was going to show today. Would be absolutely delighted for any of you to reach out to through Fiona or me separately to get more information on what this might look like and what it could do for you and your business, and see if there's any traction as to usage from our customers. This is a relatively new module. It's been out a little while, and we've not really shown this very often to people. So be really interested to understand how each of you do this within your business currently, some of the things you model and how you do it, and any kind of pains and challenges you've got there, to see whether this is something that we could leverage between us to save you time and effort and money going forward. But that's it from me today. Hopefully that gave you a brief overview of some of the functionality available. But if you want to reach out to us and set up something from a one-to-one basis, please do, because we're more than happy to set that up and talk to you about that. Fiona?
Yep. Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much. Yes, so we'll now open up for any questions. Like I said at the start, if you do have any questions, you can pop them in the question panel box and I'll read those out, or you should be able to now take yourself off mute and you can ask your questions that way. So we'll just give that a moment for any questions to come through. Okay, it doesn't look as though any questions have come through at the moment, but if they do come to you later, then please feel free to reach out to myself. My email address is on screen now, or you can raise it in our next review call or in your next call with Claudia. As Andy did say, if you would like to see more of SIP and talk about how it would work in your organisation, then also do please get in touch and we can organise a session with you. Okay. Thanks, Andy, for putting that on. If you do have any further questions, reach out to me. Next Learning Lab will be on the 19th of September, and we will be covering Highlight and Collaborate and the checklists available within Intacct. If you do have any suggestions or feedback of any future Learning Labs that you'd like to see, then again, we do welcome any feedback, so please email me and we can get those sessions put together. That's everything from me. Thank you, Andy, for putting that on for us.
No problem at all. And again, go on.
Cool. No, I was just going to say, we have just had one question come in. Is there a real-time sync option available in SIP?
No, there isn't. This is not really something you would want real-time sync on. In the wrong hands, someone's going to update your budgets and your finance system and mess everything up. So no, it is a manual sync, and the process for this is generally changes made, reviewed by people around the business, signed off, then put back into the system. So it's by design rather than a non-feature. It's just to stop people messing up your budgets in your system effectively. So no, it's a simple answer to that.
Thanks, Andy. I hope that answers your question. Sorry, was you going to go on and say something there, Andy? Before
I wasn't. No, I was just going to say thank you everyone for your time, and we'll reach out if you want to talk about this in a bit more detail and have a one-to-one session with me or people within the team. Just reach out. we're more than happy to set those up.
Brilliant, thank you. That's everything from us. Like I said, the next session is on the 9th of September, where we'll be discussing Collaborate and the checklists. You'll be receiving a copy of this recording via email over the next day, so please keep a lookout for that. And we really hope you found today's session useful, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye.